Well, hello again, Pastor Ray Barnett here with you. Glad that you could be with me here on the Oasis, which quite frankly feels today more like the iceberg. As always, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on what time you're watching this broadcast. Well, upstate New York, 33 degrees, I think, just slightly above freezing, but there's a fairly significant breeze blowing, making it feel like it's in the 20s, and it's barely Thanksgiving. So I know many of you watch from different parts of the country, and I hope that you enjoy the weather where you live. But believe it or not, this is preferable to me than living in that heat and humidity. I know that you like it, some of you like it, but to each their own. All right, let me jump into this today and talk to you about why looking back is not a good idea and why looking back is a good idea. First of all, let me state something about music. I have been under the conviction that music has such a powerful effect on the mind that I have come to believe that music is actually more powerful than drug addiction. That may be an overstatement and you may disagree, and then again in the end you may be right. But just a little while ago a song popped into my head, and so I decided to put it on and listen to it, and I was brought back immediately to 1963 and all of the memories of growing up as, well, how old would I be? 9 years old at the time. Growing up in a row house made for carpet mill workers. Walking to school. We didn't have a lot of money, which may, at least in my mind, establish this, I should say not establish, but it should, well, settle the idea that growing up white means you grow up privileged. I didn't grow up privileged. Many of my friends were in the same exact situation. Grew up in lower middle class neighborhoods, blue collar workers, and all of that. Well, anyway, listening to that song brought me right back to where I was many years ago, and so much so that I thought of a friend, decided to send the little music video to her. It's a friend of the family. We grew up together as well. And there I was, just back, so many years, and you can smell the smells, you can feel the feelings, and I mean, all of us know this, right? This is nothing, this is no secret. It's not an arcane idea. But in this case, looking back in that respect can be helpful. Then again, it can make you relive things and say, well, you know what? I regret a lot of decisions that I made. Now that can be a bad thing if you're suffering from depression or a depressed mood already. It can, in other words, it could further exacerbate your symptoms. On the other hand, I have from time to time looked back on my life, and like all of you, have regrets as to why I didn't go in this direction or that direction, and my life would have turned out much different. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm complaining or even too overly sad about decisions that I've made, in respect to the fact that I always did, for most all of my life, I always did what I thought was the best thing or the right thing at the moment based on the information that I had. So with respect to you and your symptoms, and in this case maybe your depression, looking back, has two sides to it. First of all, you can be looking back and reliving all these regrets. Then, as I said, I look back from time to time, but I use it as points of reference to say, okay, well, I made mistakes in the past. How can I compensate? How can I go forward from this point on? And as you already know, just looking at my beard, and I just gave you basically my birth date, that I'm not a young man. I'm not a terribly old man, but I'm not a young man. And I believe that there's still many opportunities for me to do much with this last, I want to say quarter, but that may be wishful thinking. I think it's faith, but looking back can be a bad idea. When you look back, again, if you're in a depressed mood or suffering from depression, you can start to rehash things and relive things and kind of go around in circles. And obviously it won't make your depression any better. But as I just stated, I do look back from time to time, and it's helpful for me to look at those periods of my life, and there was many good periods, as well as the regrets, that caused me to say, okay, you know what, in the future I can do better. I, like you, and I've told you this many times, I live with the same type of either regrets, anxieties, whatever that you live with. I've just learned how to master them and turn them to my advantage. For instance, in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, there's many concepts in there, military concepts, that we apply, or you can apply to life. And one of them is turning your enemies and using it, well, let me say it this way, turning your weaknesses rather, and using them to your advantage. If your opponent is strong, then you want to make your enemy think that you're stronger. If you're very close to your enemy, you want to make them think that you're far away. If you are far away from your enemy, you want them to think that you're very close. Okay, that's combat, that's warfare. But when it comes to your life, you could take those moments where you missed it and turn it to an advantage. You can use that experience and say, you know what, I am going to make a difference in the future. It's very, very important when you suffer from anxieties and depressions and mental health issues that you do not give in to chronic negativity, the I can't, and especially if you're older like I am, and you don't have to be much older to have regrets and to see missed opportunities and so on. You can turn that around and you can say, okay, this is a lesson. I'm learning something from this so that I can go in a more, let's say, positive direction. One thing I can give you as an example for me. I was 16 years old. I was already a championship rudimental drummer when an offer was made to me by an icon in the drumming world who I auditioned for. And, somebody asked me to say, I want you to play something for him, and I did. And he sat me down and he said, listen, if you let me be your instructor, I can make you the best drummer in the Northeast. Well, at the time, I wasn't interested. 40 years later, I gave this same man a call who I had actually played with. And, of course, he was one of the premier experts in the area of rudimental drumming, or just simply drumming. And I called him up, and I said, hey, remember that offer you made to me 40 years ago? Oh, sure. He knew my mom, he knew my dad, he knew my family. And I said, well, I'm going to take you up on it. So there I was in my 50s, going back to my old friend and taking lessons from one of the best of the best. How good was this drum instructor? Well, professors of percussion, guys with PhDs in percussive arts, would actually come to him for lessons. That's how good he was. So there I was in my 50s, And unintentionally, he made me feel just like I was 10 years old again. Sat me down and look at your left hand, look at your right hand, look at this, read the score, read the line. No, I really got such a great kick out of it because I was, and still am, so used to having to be in charge, either in my home where I go, in the pastorate, so many places where I go. I mean, I'm either in charge or people look to me for answers. And I felt great. I mean, I really felt great to be there and not be in charge and being told what to do. And especially he would encourage me about how well I was doing at drumming. And but he never failed to point out my mistakes. So there's an instance of looking back. I had a regret from a standpoint of a drummer, but I'm also a singer and I play guitar, and turn it around. See, because I said to myself, it's not too late, and it wasn't. And there, in those lessons, for those couple of years that I went to him once a week, about an hour and so many minutes from my house, hour and 15, hour and 20, I would go down there and just enjoy myself. And I learned quite a lot that has been with me for these last 15 years or so. Okay, so what's the point? Looking back has two sides to it. You can live with those regrets and just keep rehashing the regrets and say, or you could say, you know what, it's not too late. Now, in this case, this man who made the offer to me, this man who he's passed away now, this man who's in 7 percussive halls of fame, took me on when I was in my 50s, and the original offer was made when I was 16 years old. I didn't take him up at the time, and I looked back and said, that was a mistake. But I didn't have to keep it a mistake. That's the thing. What are you dealing with today that you regret? It could be anything. I mean, the person you married, the job that you took on, the career that you took on, and you go from there on and on and on. But you don't have to keep it a regret. Now, let me say one thing as a Christian pastor. When you're married, you're married. There are certain causes, biblical causes for divorce, but that's not the normal course of things. I hear people talk on that issue. Let me just say quickly on that issue there. They say, well, you married the wrong person, just ditch them and start again. No, that's not what I'm saying. Not today. No. There's certain things as professing Christians that you took a vow, you keep it. But that's not my subject for today, divorce and remarriage. My point today is that looking back can be a bad thing if done with the wrong spirit and the wrong mindset. And then again, looking back can be a good thing if you say, okay, that was a mistake. At this stage of life, how can I correct it? How can I go back and revisit it and do what I could have did years ago? Obviously, there's things that we cannot change. Anything that we've done in the past, good or bad, cannot be changed. Okay, that we know. But looking back in that respect can be a good thing if you take the initiative to make it better, to make it different right now, today. I was just telling somebody the other day they're going to start a new habit of weight loss and exercise. And people usually say, well, right after the holidays, right at the beginning of the year. And I gave them my advice, and I'm giving it to you. Whenever I start a new habit, whenever I make a decision to do something, I start that day. I usually start immediately. So let's say, for instance, almost 2 years ago, I changed my diet up to be more strict with respect to the heart disease. I didn't wait till after the holidays or one more, whatever, one more great meal. I started that day, jumped right in, and produced great results for me. Blood sugar dropped 30 points in 8 weeks. All my blood work came back super normal, so much so that recently my doctor, a week or so back, said to me, no, you really should be like in a medical journal because you've turned around things so well. See, the idea is that you could live in the, shoulda, coulda, woulda, should have, I could have, and I would have, but you don't have to live in that mindset. You can change it, and you start today. Change it by starting today, even if it's as simple as researching what you're going to do, what you want to do on the internet or books or whatever, or getting a counselor. You start today. You start right now. So, simply put, in order to deal, and I think today may more deal with a depression or depressed mood, is the way to turn it around is you start today. You make a decision. Some things, okay, just like this little brook here, I mean, it is water over the dam, and some opportunities you just simply can't get back. But I'm going to go on the record as saying that there are things, many things you can turn around, and you can really begin fresh. Don't matter how old you are, you can begin fresh. You could start that new diet. You could get on the exercise program, which is both are very good for you, as you know. You say, I should have read the Bible more. Well, you start today. You prayed more, and you start today. And improve your marriage, you start today. Relationships with children, you start today. Because it can be turned around. Because with God, nothing is impossible. Your depression, your anxiety, your ill health, let's say, okay? If you have good health, you don't need to turn it around. Your ill health, you can turn these things around if you say in faith to God, I believe you, that with you, nothing is impossible. So, I bring this to you today, that looking back can be a very detrimental thing, or looking back can be a very helpful and positive thing. It all depends on how you handle it once you start to look back. So I want to pray for you today and ask God to help you to not live the rest of your life with any regrets. And if depression and anxiety has come on you and you don't even know the reason why, as it does for many, many people, just be firm in your attitude and in your commitment that you're not going to stay in this seat of depression and this place of anxiety and ill health and other things. See, again, let me say one more time, with God, nothing is impossible, and it can be turned around. So make that decision. Make it today. If Christ, by the way, is not your Savior, make that decision today and turn your life over to God. I was reading about Sugar Ray Leonard, and the great fighter, great fighter, and just doing some research on him, and there's a headline that says, everything has changed around since God came in my life, all right? And he was older when he did that. So you get the point. Looking back can be a good thing if you handle it correctly. Looking back can be a bad thing if it's handled incorrectly. And here's the question. What will you do? So let me pray for you. Father, help my friends and these people who have formed this little group that we have, and we have great exchanges via email and other things for prayer and so forth. Help them today to not live the rest of their life with regrets, but to overcome every situation, every depression, every anxiety, and other things as well. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so that's it for today. As always, I invite you to subscribe if you'd like to. Hit the notification button so you know when I upload these videos. And I always appreciate the thumbs up. You can see I got a glove on. Believe me, I'm going to be very glad to get out of this spot in just a couple of minutes. It's cold. But God willing, and all things being equal, it's going to be very limited how many more times I can come down here. But working on some things to get a better kind of a home studio going, so that during the winter months we can still have these videos and still provide some kind of a more pleasant background for you, as well as the content. All right, God willing, I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless.